I'd like to welcome you to the Dedupe and Match Made Easy Best Practices for Data Cleansing and Matching. I am really excited to introduce Donna from Penn State University. Aaliyah, if you want to advance, if you can hear me. Thank you. So today we're featuring Apsona the Golden App. And we were founded in May of 2009. We've been on the App Exchange since March 2011. We have over 1,700 customers with 10,000 users, and I recognize some of the names in the room as current customers / users. We're really happy you're here, and the new folks, we're happy you're here too. We have over 250 App Exchange reviews with an average rating of 4.89 out of 5. And we can work with any data models: Sales Service Cloud, Industry Cloud, NPSP, EDA, AFQ. So if you want to advance. Oop. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Donna.
Which screen are you? Okay, you good. You see. Well, I am so excited to be here today. You should be seeing the introduction screen. Is that correct?
We do, and I just want to do one more housekeeping thing. If folks could either put things in the Q&A so we could get questions answered if you have any, that would be great. And just let me, I'll be watching it and letting Donna know as you ask questions.
Super.
Go ahead, Donna. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm Donna Wittig. Currently, I'm working at Penn State Great Valley as their CRM administrator. I've been there a little over 3 years. I do have about over 15 years of experience, consulting experience in the Salesforce space, primarily around nonprofits. I serve as the volunteer on the committee for some events. It's a really cool open source event management tool. A little shout out to that. That was created by St. Thomas University, and it is a free tool if you are looking for an event management tool. I'm also the co-leader of a local Salesforce group, and I just really am passionate about volunteering my time and helping people, and a lot of that it revolves around Salesforce itself. Excuse me. So I wasn't advancing. There we go. So a little bit about Penn State. Penn State is a Commonwealth campus. It was established in 1963, and it's located in Chester County, about 25 miles west of Philadelphia. We are just a graduate school. We offer master's degrees, graduate certificates, professional development, conference services, and that type of stuff. We're in a 8.5 acre setting in the Great Valley Corporate Center, and we have a little over 1,000 students between our online and on-campus programs. A large percentage of them are international, about 37%, and our average class size is about 20 students. So it just gives you a sense of the size of our particular campus. So some of the challenges that we're going to look at, or I'm going to discuss today, that we have at Penn State, and I'm sure a lot of other campuses or other people have these types of things that Apsona helps us address, are we get prospect inquiries, and these people will inquire multiple times, and they'll be using all kinds of different email addresses. So we can often get the same person in our system 2 or 3 or more times just using different email addresses. So that creates duplicate records. What we want to be able to do is identify those duplicate records, right? And then address them. Now, Salesforce, unless you have the limited edition, which you can do bulk merging in there, the standard Salesforce dedupe product, the way it works is when you set up duplicate rules, and then when somebody goes to that record or a process touches that record, that duplicate rule fires. And if it finds a duplicate, it writes it to what's called like the duplicate record set. Then you can create a custom report type and do a report on that. So you can see any of those duplicates and then work to resolve them. But that really only works on those records that have been touched. It doesn't, if somebody doesn't go touch any records or automated process doesn't touch them, those rules don't fire and those records don't get identified. So we really wanted to be able to look at all those. We have multiple systems of record throughout our student funnel. So we have Salesforce as our marketing recruitment tool. We have a different tool for our applications the students submit. We have yet a third tool for the actual student enrollment system. We have another tool for our continuing education registration. So we have all these various tools, and in order to see a 360-degree view of what the student life cycle is, we really need to bring all that data together, which requires frequent imports of the systems where that's not automated. So Apsona helps me with that, address that. And then in general, it just helps me with cleaning up missing or incorrect information. Okay, so some of the features we're going to review that help address those things are the dedupe and merging tool. So deduping and merging basically is going to help me find those duplicate records, and then where I can and where I want to, I can actually merge them from that tool, either singularly or in bulk. We're going to look at the Match CSV tool, which I use a lot. What it lets you do is it lets you take a data file and look for matching records in the system based on some matching information. It could be a name, it could be an email, it could be some other primary key. We're going to look at import mapping. So basically, when I have to bring in these imports from these third-party systems or the other systems that we're using, I can get that data in the same format each time. Then I can use Apsona to set up a mapping, save that mapping, so that I can just reference it each time, which saves me the time of having to map those fields over and over and over again. And then the last thing, if we have time, we'll look at data cleansing. So how you can update, move, or delete information using Apsona. With the caveat, whenever you delete information, you have to be very, very careful. Okay. So I'm going to talk about two scenarios in the deduping realm. And then we'll go in and look at those scenarios in my sandbox. So the first one is contacts. We use Apsona to identify contacts in bulk that we may want to merge. We don't actually merge them in bulk in Apsona. And we don't do that for two reasons. One, because our program managers like to manually review those records to make sure that they're the same people. We often, because especially with the international, there are a lot of people that have very similar names, but they're not the same people. And the other thing is we have, if you have the nonprofit Success Pack or you have EDA, you know that you have multiple email addresses. So you can have a personal email, you can have an alternate email, and you can have a work email or a university email. And sometimes we get records and they've given us two emails, but they're both in the personal email field. So we want to be able to move one of those personal emails to an alternate email before we merge them. With Apsona, you can choose a winning record, but you can't actually physically, during the merge, move data from one field to a different field. So that's the other reason why we look at them individually. So the standard, we talked about this before, but the standard Salesforce duplicate rules are good for finding things, but not really in bulk. All right. So the second scenario that we're going to look at is actually where we do bulk merge them. So we have a product, I won't go into the different product names that we have, but we have another product in our system that we use for event registrations. It's not Summit events, it's a different event tool. And it uses form assembly and some other moving parts to it. Well, from time to time, what happens is there's some hiccup in that system where people go to register and they either bail out early because maybe they think it's taking too long, or they don't get the confirmation email, so they register multiple times. And what happens is the people end up getting multiple registration records for the same event in our system. And sometimes we catch it and sometimes we don't. So what Apsona is used for is we can go and we can run in bulk and look for any instances of that. And then we can go ahead and merge them. And since most of the time, the only thing different between the two registration records is the registration date, I can create a master rule that gives priority to the most recent registration and then just bulk merge based on the master that it finds. Okay, so now let's go take a look at those two scenarios in Apsona. Okay. So the one that we talked about really two different things. Let's first look at in my system, I've created the Zero dashboard where I can basically look for different issues with my system. And the reason why I'm showing you this is so I can show you kind of Salesforce's standard duping, deduping scenario. So you can see here, I've got this dashboard. And if I click on this, I'm going to go into my report that I created, looking at the duplicates that Salesforce has identified. So here's the different duplicates that Salesforce has identified in this system based on those duplicate rules that I have and people touching the records. So if I go in, I could address these and I could address one or two of them, but I have to do it individually. I can't address them in bulk. So it's good for identifying, but it's really not good for helping me merge all these if I wanted to merge them all at once. The other situation for duplicates we're going to look at is on Kent. You can see Kent here has two registration records for the same event. So he's registered twice for this Essentials in Strategic Leadership certificate. If I come over to Apsona, first we'll kind of look at the contacts. So I'm going to come to my contacts tab in Apsona. I'm going to go to tools and I'm going to go to dedupe and match, and I'm going to go to dedupe. I have a bunch of dedupe rules in my sandbox for this presentation. We're going to talk about two. So I have dedupe on name and dedupe on email. If I click on dedupe on name, the first thing you'll see is this duplicate records tab. Apsona requires you to filter down the set of records that you're looking for duplicates, and I believe that that's due to performance. If you have millions or hundreds of thousands of records, it can be a problem if you're trying to look at all the records. We don't have that many, so generally I want all the records to be looked at, so I get around kind of that by just saying contact name is not equal to empty. So it's basically going to look at every record in my system. But you could narrow it down if I only wanted to look at certain contact types, like just prospects or something like that. I could narrow it down there. The match fields tab is where you're actually getting into the guts of it. So you're saying, well, what are we looking for? How are we trying to find those duplicates in the system? So in this one, I'm looking for name. So I'm looking for first name, case insensitive, and last name, case insensitive. And I'm doing that just in case one time the person put their self in all caps, and the second time they put themselves in upper lowercase. Apsona is case sensitive around this, so you really want to make sure if there could be some variation in the case that you choose case sensitive here. So it's going to be looking at these two fields to see if it can find a match on those. I could put additional fields if I wanted in here. Now, the additional fields tab, this is where you can say, what other fields do I want Apsona to show me when it gives me the results of this, of the duplicates? And this is important because oftentimes when you are looking at duplicates, you need to look for other identifying information besides just their name in order to understand whether they're truly duplicates or not. So here I've chosen some other things like mailing address, business phone, maybe their stage, their different email addresses and whatnot. I also usually put on here things that I might want to see in order to tell me, give me some indication of which record I might want to keep. Like I might want to keep an applicant over a prospect. So I put an application start date on there. The group selection, I'm just going to leave the defaults. That's just how many people you want to show into the group, and you could put filters there as well. And then this master and field rules, this is where you can have Apsona determine what would be the winning record if you were merging the records in bulk. So here, although I'm not going to actually merge these in bulk today, I've said I would want the person who has an application, so application start date is the newest, to get a score of 10. So if I had a record in there with no application, who didn't have an application start date, and I had a record in there with an application, the one with the application would get a higher score and it would be marked as the master. Then down here, I've checked the overwrite empty null value fields with non-master fields if available. So what that means is if you have two records in your system, so record A and record B is the master. So normally it would take all the data from record B, unless you tell it otherwise, but maybe record A has data in the phone field, but record B doesn't. If you check that, then it's going to take the phone field from record B. All right, then I'm going to do save and find just so we can see what it looks like when you do the results. So here it's found matches on name. So there's 2 Chris Bacons and there's 2 Tim Bars. And if we take a look, what's nice about pulling in the extra data, right, is that here I can see these are actually 2 different people. If I hadn't pulled in the full name, I might not know that this is Chris James Bacon and this is Crispy Bacon. And the same thing here. I can look at these and I brought in the phone information and that tells me right away that really these are the same people because they have the same phone number. And what's interesting over here is you see the scoring. So this Tim Bar got a score of 10 and this one got a score of 0. It's because this one had an application start date. So it marked this one as the master. Now, if I was happy with this, if I didn't need to make any changes, I could say merge all and it would merge those 2 records for me with the master record, it retaining the data from the master record, and then it would copy all the child records under the master record to there. So if it had inquiries or if it had opportunities or whatever it might have, it's going to merge those over to the winning record. But this is one of the reasons why we don't, because you see here, these 2, even though they're the same person, they've given us 2 different email addresses. So we really, and they're both in the personal email. So we really want to go over to their contact record and we want to move one of those to the alternate email address before we merge them so that we can retain those. So that's an example of looking at the email merge on the contact record. Real quick, we can take a look at the other one just to see the difference there. So the other one I'm deduping on email. So the same deal, just full name is not empty. Match field's a little different. I'm doing email again, but again, I'm doing that case insensitive because even when you're doing matching or when you're doing any kind of matching, like matching here or matching in the match CSV feature, you want to for email do case insensitive because I've had some times when I've forgotten to do that. And when I have, I've not got matches that were actually out there. So that's important. Again, bunch of different fields I've chosen here this time. I've chose multiple items in the master. This time I'm looking at create date and application start date. So just giving you an idea of how you can set up different dupe rules differently to show you different data. And in this one, it's quite interesting that in this scenario, we've got 2 people using the same email address, but they're different people. So they might be, you know, husband and wife or something like that. So we wouldn't want to merge those records. So, okay. So that's the example of how we use Apsona to identify the duplicates for contacts, but we don't actually use it to merge them, but it's super in helping us understand what the duplicates are out there and then for me to assign those to their program managers to take a look at. The second case that we were talking about was those duplicate registrations. And I know it seems a little weird, but the registrations go into an object called contact schedule items. So if I come over to contact schedule items, and I generally like to be working in tabular view, I'm going to come over to tools. I'm going to go to that dedupe and match again, and I'm going to go to dedupe. And I've set up my rule. So what's really nice is once you create a rule, you can save that rule and then you can just use it over and over again. So let's take a look at the duplicate registrations rule. This time I'm looking at the event name is not empty because I want to look at all the events. Probably after I do it initially, then I might want to say event start date greater than today. That way I'm not looking at all the past events that I've already addressed. I'm only looking at events in the future. But for now, I'm just saying it's not empty. This time on my match fields, I'm looking at the contact ID exact and the event number ID exact, because I'm looking for the exact same contact registered for the exact same event. So that's my criteria. And then for additional fields, I'm just bringing some information over to verify that my matching criteria is actually what I want it to be. So I'm bringing the registration date, the event name, the person's name, and the event date. I left the defaults for group selection. For the master fields, I'm choosing the event registration as the newest. I could have done the oldest. It doesn't matter in this particular situation, but what the important thing is, I want Apsona to identify that master for me so I don't have to go select it for each of the records that I want to merge if I have a bunch of them. So I have a rule that gives the event registrations the newest a score of 5. So I'm going to do save and find. And see, it's identified one more than I knew. And I knew about Kent C Street. I didn't know about Anita Bath. So here I have both the records, and with Kent C Street, you can see that he registered on the 17th and the 14th. So the registration on the 17th is newer. It's given it a score of 5, and it's marked it as the master. Anita Bath registered twice on the same date, so it just gave the master to the first one that it found. You could do tie breaking in there as well. So since I don't need to do anything special with these, it looks straightforward. I don't need to move any information. But if I did, if say I wanted to individually merge these, you can actually click on this little icon here, and it'll pop up the 2 records for you, or the number of records if I had 3 or 4 or 5, all of them together. And you can actually look at the information here. And what's really cool is if there's a discrepancy between the 2, it shows you that. So it highlights it for you. So you could come in and say, if I wanted to keep that one instead, I could choose that one instead and then merge. I'm not going to. But so once you're satisfied with all that, you can say merge all. It tells you it's going to do 2 groups of 2, which is what I have. And if you had a bunch, you might want to use this small batch just for performance. And then I'm going to say proceed. And it's going to hop through. It's going to merge this for me. Might take a few minutes. I don't know why today Salesforce has been running a little bit slow for me. Okay. So it merges them, and then if you want, you can download the results of that in an Excel file or CSV format, and you can take a look at it. So that was the dedupe and merge. Was there any questions around that, or should I just keep moving along?
Sorry, I was on mute. There have been no questions, and the ones, oh wait, I currently don't see.
Eura raised a hand.
Richard was asking a question. I currently don't see contact schedule items tab in Apsona. How do I access that tab?
Well, do you want me to say?
Sure, go ahead.
So you may not see that because you may not have that product. But in general, under settings, there's configurations. And in configurations, this is where you set up different configurations for the different profiles in your system. So I'm in as a system admin, no X configuration. So I can click on that and I say edit. And then this is where you tell Apsona what objects you have access to. So you move the ones to visible to the ones you want to see. You can say what fields you want or don't want. And then you can say which ones you want to set up on the menu bar here. And then when you save, it's going to say, oh, you made some changes. I have to refresh. It'll go out and refresh, and then it'll come back, and then you'll see whatever tabs you have that you want in your product. So you may not have the product that I have that puts this object in my system, but that's how you change those settings on the top.
And we have roughly about 4 minutes left, Donna.
For the whole webinar?
For content, yeah.
Oh, I thought we had I thought it was an hour.
I think we're going to leave some space for questions and answers, and I probably would suggest that we leave your demo org up so people can ask those questions.
Okay.
So go
All
ahead.
right.
I didn't mean to
Okay.
interrupt.
That's okay.
Donna, maybe you want to do just one more of your examples and
Sure.
and do the question. We'll start doing questions after that.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought we had a like 45 minutes to go through the different stuff. Okay, my bad. All right, the other thing that I wanted, and I'll talk about this really quickly. I use, and what we do is we have our enrollment information is in a different system, and I want to bring that information into Salesforce. And in order to bring that information in, I have two different records. I have the program enrollment record, and then underneath that, I have each term they're enrolled and their child records. So the first thing I need to do with my data is I need to try and find that associated program enrollment record. And in my data file, I have a match key that I created, which is basically the student ID and their program, which is what this shows here. So in order to do that, I come over here to program enrollments. I'm going to go to tools. I'm going to go to dedupe and match CSV. I'm going to choose my file. And I'm going to say next. And this is where I can say, well, I have this field in my file and I want to try and find the matching Salesforce record for that. So I have this thing called a PE match key in my file. And then I have a match key, which has the same data on my record in Salesforce. So I'm going to say I'm looking for an exact match, and I'm going to say next. I want it to return the Salesforce ID for me. I could have it return other fields if I wanted to, and I'm going to say next. And then again, you have to have a filter here. So I'm going to look for, and this filter is just to limit the number of records that you're looking at. So I'm going to say my match key is not empty, and I'm going to say finish. And let me download those results so you can see what the heck we were just doing. So here in my file, this was my match key. So it was looking for a matching record that had this match to it in the system. So it said it found one record for each of these based on that. If it didn't find anything, it would have a 0. If it found more than one, it would have a 2 or 3 or 4 for however many found. And then at the end here, what it did was it returned the Salesforce record ID of the field of the record that it found in Salesforce. So what's really cool about that now is I can import these records in, these child records, attach them to the parent record, and Salesforce will be able to have the ID that it needs to hook it to. So I'm just going to do a quick import of that so you can see that. So the program enrollment term history is hooked to the program enrollment. So real quickly, here's my program enrollment for that person. You can see they have one program enrollment with no student, no academic load. For Apsona, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say import update. Oops, wrong one. Import and update. I've saved a mapping, which is really awesome. So it knows that I want to do an upsert. I'm going to do it based on a match key that I have in my file. I'm going to choose my file. I'm going to get next. And because I already mapped these and saved that mapping, it knows exactly how to map my data into the system. So it's mapped it all out for me. And here's that record ID that I just went and got from Salesforce to the parent program enrollment record. So I'm going to say next. It says it's found one new, it found one update, one new. So I'm going to say import. And voila, it imported the records for me. If I come over here and I refresh, now we see that Hamburger has their spring updated to say it's enrolled half time. And now they have a new enrollment for the fall 2023 term. So I know it was pretty quick, but that gives you an idea of how you can do the match CSV. So we matched looking for the matching program enrollment record based on this match key that I had. And then once we got those IDs, we brought them into Salesforce and we did an update using the match key that I have on these records. Oops. So this is the match key for the program enrollment history record. Okay. Did you want me to answer questions now?
Yeah. So we have a couple. Yura said, when selecting the fields to merge, can you change the field to something else? Yura, can you just clarify for me? I'm going to allow you to talk and tell me what you mean by that, because I'm not sure I understand the question. I apologize.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
All right. So when you are merging, you have the option to select the field from master or from the other field. My question is, for instance, neither of the options that I have available already in the system is suitable for me, and I would like to change it to something else. So, for example,
so you mean like inline editing? The answer is inline editing. Is that correct?
Yes. So if I have 3 emails, for example, and neither of them are the correct email, during the merge, I want to enter my own option, the email that I know is correct, that is not in the options for the merging, and I do that. Do I have that option?
You cannot, as I understand it, you cannot inline edit during merging. You certainly could inline edit before you get to, like, separately from the merging and just viewing results in that specific object, but you can't inline edit while you're merging. So oftentimes for something like that, I would identify the record here. So if you say Dan Lyons, you want them to have a different email address, then I would pop that record open in Salesforce. I would go in and edit it in the Salesforce record, come back, refresh, and then merge. That's the way I would handle that particular situation.
Okay. It has to be done before or afterwards.
I'm sorry?
That information has to be done before or after the merge.
You could really do it either way, but you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. And we have a couple of other questions here. Carolyn Kenny, hold on one second. I got to find her in my, there we go. Okay, Carolyn said, are there field limits that import process similar to MPSP data import? Team?
Yeah. Hi all.
Hi.
So using the NPSP data importer tool, you can only import like 61 or 67 or something like that. There's like a limit to the number of fields you can import at a time. So I was just wondering if the same is true for the Apsona import.
I don't know if one of you guys know that. I've not imported that many fields at once, so I wouldn't have hit that limit. Does anybody from Apsona?
Justin?
Yeah, this is Justin. I can chime in on that as one of the solution engineers here. Donna, if you scroll down to the very bottom of your page, and I see you got the sandbox up, it's a little hard to see. We put it on the footer, but our engineering team puts the API limit at the bottom. So the only actual limit that exists is just, yeah, so basic system operations in Salesforce, or when you create a record, save a record, etc., that often exhausts an API, and Apsona loads all of your data adjustments, whether it's imports, deduplications, reports, updates, etc., through APIs as well. So that is the only limit that we use, apart from your internet speed and your browser connection. So no limits to the number of fields you can import at one time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. And then Phyllis is asking, Our organization sales ops team has a need to upload people to a subscription object. Do you think that the Apsona tool can do that? Donna, what's your experience as a customer?
I would believe so. I don't think there's any limitations. If you can see the object, you can import to it. I would think that you would need to understand a little bit about what that subscription object's doing, like the architecture around it. Does it, like what needs to be joined? So when we were taking that example of, I was importing in those program enrollment history records. Well, they had a dependency of a program enrollment record. So I would guess that your subscriptions have a dependency of other records, maybe a contact record or other things. So you would have to understand that and make sure that your data was formatted properly. But if you can access it, if you have the rights to access it and write to that data, you should be able to bring in the data with Apsona.
Okay, so
then-
we're in Sales Cloud, person accounts.
Mhm.
So the sole dependency is the account record.
Mhm.
There may be some dependencies on the record types.
Mhm.
That's probably it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Then I would imagine, yeah, but you have to make sure you understand the record types and set your record types and so forth on your imports. But what I would do is, if you have a sandbox that's a partial sandbox, do a test on your sandbox, right?
Okay, thank you.
A few times.
And
until you-
Thanks, Donna. And I was just going to chime in on Donna's comment because I'm a firm believer in Sandbox, that we offer free Sandbox trials. They are free and unlimited amount of time. And then anything that you do or build in the Sandbox, you can move it using Apsona items. So it's a very simple lift. Donna, have you ever done that with
I
Apsona
haven't,
items?
so that's very exciting.
Okay, cool. Look at that. You learned something new today.
That's right.
And then James, I'm going to unmute you, James Hammer. You were asking, it looks like a specific question directed towards Donna. Do you have Apsona licenses for all your program managers who need to review records, or are you importing Apsona data to share with other staff?
I have 3 Apsona licenses. I do not have them for all the program managers. I typically am in charge of kind of identifying and bulk those duplicates. I do the first eyeball through them, and those that I can resolve, I do, just because I have, I consider that part of my job and a little bit more time on my hands. Those that I cannot resolve, I will send them a link to the Salesforce record and ask them to look at them and resolve them. So we don't usually have a ton of dupes because it's something that I do a couple times a month. So I'm on top of it. So it's not like we have thousands of them to do. If that's helpful.
It is. Thanks.
James, okay, great. I wanted to be sure you got what you needed. All right, and then we have Richard. Richard says, when merging duplicate accounts, contact records, how does Apsona handle linked records such as opportunities and campaign memberships?
It will move them. So what happens is, and if I'm speaking out of turn, anybody can jump in, but what will happen is it identifies the master. It will then move all the child records from the losing record, the non-master, to the master record, and then it deletes the master record.
Did that
Okay,
answer your
thank you.
question, Richard? Oop.
Yeah, partially. Second part to the question there will be, what if there are, and as in the case for campaign memberships, they exist. What if that campaign membership exists on both of the parent and the child record, and we merge the two? Do I end up with 2 campaign memberships, or can I somehow deduplicate that as well within the same process?
Yes. So that happens to me with opportunities. So we get somebody creates a inquiry. I have a flow that creates an opportunity related to that inquiry. They come in as somebody else. They inquire again. Now I've got 2 contacts, 2 opportunities. I merge those contacts, 1 contact, 2 opportunities. So I have a dedupe rule, and I bulk dedupe my opportunities periodically. You could do the same thing. So you could run your duplicates. You could have a process where you're going to run your duplicates on your accounts. Right after that, you can run your duplicates on your campaign members, right? So you would, how I did event ID and contact ID, you would do like campaign ID and contact ID or account ID or whatever it is. And then you could decide, and that's probably a good scenario where you could say campaign member date, the first one that's the date created wins, and then just bulk merge those in one fell swoop.
Okay,
Probably,
thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. That
Mhm.
answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'm gonna unmute Charlotte for a second. Sorry. Okay, Charlotte, you wanted to share with James. I just want to be sure that in case he had an additional question.
Yeah, so so kind of just another example, we're probably a 40-person foundation, and we have about, I think, 9 Apsona licenses, and we kind of grew them from 6 to 9 because we did have a couple kind of features of Apsona that we wanted to provide people that were not within kind of the back office team, specifically for like kind of mail merges. So or like templated mail merges. That isn't this webinar, but we have found not just back office, but specific groups helpful. And we're also kind of considering some buttons above Apsona. So it's even easier, and there's not a request to someone else to then kind of run a merge and then go back. So a couple different options. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
I have a place I volunteer for who has the, we don't have the mail merge here, but they have the mail merge, and I created a button so they can mail merge their donation letters out of there using Apsona, which is really cool.
Okay, Olivia, did you want to maybe clarify what you said or saying love the zero dashboard?
Oh, she's saying she loves my zero dashboard here. So this is just basically looking for bad data in my system. So ideally you want everything to be a 0. So I don't want anything that there's a number on here. It's something I have to take a look at. It's a piece of missing data. So I think that's what she's saying.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. It's not Apsona specific, but if I find a number on here, I can use Apsona to address it, which is
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying that I loved it, and was curious if there's any like best practices or any resources on like, you know, best like ways to set that kind of thing up.
Yeah, I just create reports for things like I look for unassigned emails. I look for like any fields where it's important that their information's in there, like what's their contact type. I look for like improperly assigned records. So, you know, if something comes in and it's still assigned to the kind of integration user, but it should be assigned to a program user. So I set those up as reports. You always have to have a group kind of on your report. And then in the dashboard, I just use the number one, then there's like a number chart on the dashboard. And it displays a number if there's a problem.
Okay. And then Ming Lee is saying my Apsona context tabs tools does not have the dedupe dropdown. Oh, how would I go about adding that? Ming, what that means is you've probably not purchased the dedupe and match functionality. So it's an additional license in addition to your Apsona for Salesforce license. So you would have to reach out to sales@apsona.com, which is me. So, and I'm happy to help. Hopefully that answered your question. And then Andy is saying our major merge needs are for contacts, but we first want to merge parent household accounts. And we also want to choose which user login record to retain and relate to the keeper of the contact. Can Apsona handle that complexity? The simple answer is yes, but it would take some setup and some thought. Justin, did you want to chime in at all on that?
I would plead the fifth. I think you've.
Okay, cool. You're asked post-merge of account after merge of contacts and NPSP. I'm not sure. Are you asking a similar question? Let me just.
Yes, I think
Okay.
I think Richard asked that question, but I just wanted to make sure because it's a little bit backwards. In the case of Richard, it was merging of I believe contacts and then dealing with child objects. So in my case, it's actually merging of child objects like in a contact, and the result in the nonprofit Salesforce package is it basically keeps the account, and I think it calls miscellaneous or some kind of name that later on needs to be merged if you have anything attached to it. So I guess my question is there any way to automate the two duplications? So for example, if I merge a contact and with some rules that will also initiate the merging of the account.
Yeah, that's
I can speak to that, Donna, if you'd like. Okay, at the current time, we don't have automation, but we are in the process of working on it. Safe harbor, as everybody knows that statement from Salesforce, right? It looks like that's about 9 months out, at least.
So let me just clarify the specific question from around NPSP. For each table that you dedupe and match on, every table or every object is its own set of records, right? So a contact records you would merge first in the example you referenced. But if you're merging two contact records, the expectation is those account records in the background may still exist and also need to be merged. One of the best practices that I've seen a lot of our customers and our partners sort of perform is just to create a simple a second follow-up account merge step that uses the NPSP one-to-one contact lookup field to match those two accounts. So it's, since you've merged the two contacts and both of those parent accounts now point to the same winning contact, it's a very simple merge as a second follow-up step. If you want to email us at support@apsona.com, we'll be happy to sort of send some documentation to that end. But the ability to automate dedupe actions is on a roadmap, but we do not have a time frame for it at this point in time. The 9-month time frame is around automated document merge. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I misspoke. My
Lots
apologies.
of products, hard to keep them all straight for all of us.
My apologies.
I do have to say that when you know, with things like that, the support is really helpful. I think there's a lot of times where if you can explain a good use case and you can email support, then they can typically get back to you with either just can't do it or with a way of doing it, like Justin just explained.
And I'm just going to jump in and say there are several ways to get support. Donna, would you mind, because you're sharing your screen, could you go to a new tab and just type in Apsona help and documentation? I just want to make sure people know where this is. Yeah. And I think it'll get us there. There you go, the support. If you click on that, yeah, thanks. So this is what it looks like. It's very searchable. So for example, Donna, I'm just going to use my Apsona items. So if you'll just type it in either the search there or up in the upper corner, it doesn't matter. It'll take you there.
Do you want like that?
And then the first one that came back. So this is talking about what I was mentioning about managing your customization. So if you build in the sandbox, this is how you would move it over. But you saw how easy it was for her to find that. Our documentation is probably one of our best features. I also wanted to mention that there is a Trailblazer community, and what I love about the Trailblazer community is it's kind of almost like this, except online, right? It's people answering other people's questions. Yes, as Apsona, we monitor it and we'll jump in and answer, but I wanted to really specifically call out that it's a great place to get ideas. And then finally, twice a week, we have office hours. So come visit us. If you got a problem, even if you're not a customer yet, come visit. If you can share your screen, we'd love it, because then we can walk you through and get you started and give you whatever you need. Okay. Yep. Thanks, James. You can also find help and documentation link in the Apsona upper right part of the screen. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. I typically don't go there because I have it bookmarked. So it's in the upper. Yeah, if you click on help, there's a quick start and some more help is at the bottom down there, so you can get there quickly. Richard is asking if I merge two accounts which have two different owners, then how do I manage the assignment of the owner that is retained? Donna, I think you kind of showed that because you popped it out. Could you rerun a merge and show Richard how we could do that?
So if you're merging individually here, you can pop up this little customize this group. And then you can change, it'll show you where there's a discrepancy. And if you want it to change to the non-master record, you can select the non-master record over here. Is that what you meant, Rob?
I think that's what he's getting at. Richard,
Richard, the other thing that you could do is, and I don't use this feature a lot, so somebody from Apsona might need to jump in, but you could maybe set up, there are, within the merge feature, you can say what wins on a particular field level, I believe. So you might have some logic on like the master and field rules on when a particular owner should be the winner.
Yeah. So yeah, just to explain, we have different fundraising teams, some of which deal with mass markets, large groups of individuals giving, say, small amounts, and some of who deal with major donors. All of our accounts and contacts are owned, and the ownership is dictates which team is responsible for managing those records and those accounts. And yeah, if I merge a mass market account with a major donor account, we'd like to retain the major donor account ownership, so I can specify that in my hierarchy of rules. Yeah.
Is it like, how do you know which is which? Is it
probably from the record type of the owner? Yeah.
So I'm just imagining that that's something you could do. The other thing you could always do is like an exception report after you merge. You could run Apsona to look for, like how I look for my records that aren't assigned to the right program manager, right? So you could run a list after you do your bulk merge to look for any ones that say, you know, these records have these specific criteria, but they're not assigned to these specific people, and then address it. Do like a bulk update in Apsona to update all those records to the correct owner.
Thank you very much.
I'm just curious, Don, are you running that report through Apsona and then doing the update there? Yep. Yay.
Of my Apsona. It really does make my life a lot easier, you know, for quick data cleanup.
How much time would you estimate that it saves you? Like, just a rough guess. Yeah.
5+ hours, maybe more. It's hard to look at it in like individually, like the imports, I can't tell you, it saves me a ton of time. That saved mappings where I can add columns. Like years ago, when I was at another organization, we had demand tools. And one of the things I loved about demand tools is that you could insert columns when you import. You don't have to have that information in your data file. Apsona is the same. It's beautiful. So I don't need, if I'm going to import data from my CSV file and I want to assign it to all the same owner, I don't have to go in and put an owner column and copy it all down. I can just set that up when I set up my import map. So it's really, really excellent for that. And it's really excellent for identifying things and bulk updating them quickly. It takes a little time to set it up, but once you have it set up, then you're not doing it over and over again. It's just point and click.
So from your estimation, is it fair to say that with the amount of time that you save, that it justifies any cost concerns that you have?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yuri, you had another question that I don't know that I understand the context, so give me a second to unmute you. Okay, ask away, my friend.
Yes, thank you very much. If once Apsona has identified the duplicates based on my rule, not within Salesforce, but within Apsona, would I be able to export the IDs or that into a report?
Yeah. I believe so. See, there's this little export button here. So you can see grid data or all data.
And
So grid data is what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, and then all data.
And then all data would be
fields.
everything on the record.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
And that's
Thank you.
good. Like, so say if, we're having my program manager review them, I could just give them the Excel file if I wanted to, Or, you could, like you said, if you wanted to move it, you could always add the Salesforce ID of the records here. And then you could modify your Excel file, and then you could do use Apsona to use an import update.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to unmute Jenna. Oh, Jenna, you've got three people here. I'm not sure which one you are. So her question is, speaking of cost and whether it's justified, can you tell us the cost to add to an existing Apsona account? So it depends on which license and or when you add it and when your renewal date is, because what happens is as you add to an Apsona account, like let's say, for example, you decide, oh, I need 3 more document and email merge licenses. And you call me today and you say, Rob, please add those. What would happen is we would generate an invoice based on today's date, and then whatever your annual renewal date is, it would prorate based on that. So hopefully that answers your question. I don't know which one of these 3 you are. So if you could just put something in the chat and let me know if that got you enough information to help you, that would be great. And oh, and Barbara just put a link to pricing, I believe. Yes. Okay, great. I'd love to talk to you, Jenna. No problem. All right. I don't see any other questions. Did you have any final things you wanted to say, Donna?
Just that I really love Apsona. It's unmatched value for the money. It's easy to use. It's got really sophisticated capabilities, and it makes my life easier. And I can do a ton of stuff with it. We didn't get a chance to look at, which was my fault. I didn't realize. I went over a little bit, but I use it to move data. So sometimes when we initially did our implementation, we have 2 different products and they have the same name field. So like gender, it was in the wrong gender field. Well, I could use Apsona to really quickly move that data from the one gender field to the other gender field and then clear out the wrong gender field. So I use it all the time to move data, and I use it all the time for imports and updates. So it really does pay for itself really quickly. And if you're on a limited budget, you can simply assign, get the smallest number of licenses, and then just have one person that kind of does the heavy lifting on most of the stuff. But it's definitely worth the price for the tools. And this is just one of the many amazing tools that Apsona offers.
So from the bottom of my heart and the rest of the Apsona team, I really do appreciate all the time and effort that you put into this. I think it's awesome that you were so willing to share and show how Penn State is using Apsona. And I hope to see some of the folks that are here again, and I'm happy to answer any questions at sales@apsona.com. And another thing I wanted to say, Donna, is thank you for creating too much content, because I love it. I love it. That just gives us
I can
another
do
option
another one on this stuff I didn't get to.
Yeah, to bring you back. We would love to have you. So thank you, everyone. Have a really great day.
Somebody's asking how you sign up for office hours. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, you do not have to sign up for office hours. They're Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's listed on the side of our Trailblazer community, as well as on our, if you follow us on LinkedIn, I post all the time about when office hours are to try and remind people to come. And Barb just stuck the bit.ly on. You'll just have to go and get the dates. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Donna.
Everybody. Have a great day.